If someone had ever told me that at the age of 75 I would have to leave my beloved home to live in a nursing home for 2 months, I would have surely laughed and dismissed the thought. I have always prided myself on my independence, on a life where I could take care of myself, make my own decisions without needing anyone's help. I used to think that nursing homes were for the weak, for those who could no longer care for themselves, and that I would never need one, at least not yet. But life has a way of startling us awake, of placing us in situations we never imagined, of teaching us the most important lessons at the times we least expect. At first, I thought this was just a short pause, a temporary place to rest and recover my health. I believed I would soon return to my old rhythm of life, still strong, still free as before. But I was wrong. Those 2 months were not just a time for my body to heal, but a journey that completely changed the way I see life, aging, and what truly matters as we step into the later years of our lives. Every day in the nursing home, I met people with different life stories. Some had been living there for years, waiting for a phone call, a hug, or simply for someone to remember they existed. Some were fortunate enough to still have family visiting, to still have hands tightly held with love. But many were left alone, with memories of loved ones now only existing in faded photographs by their bedside. Looking at those faces, I asked myself, are any of us truly prepared for the day when the world keeps turning, but there is no longer a place for us in it? I spent many sleepless nights thinking about the way we live, about human connections, and about the choices we make throughout our lives. Some people here found peace, accepting their fate with a gentle smile. But there were also those who sat with eyes full of sorrow, regretting the things they hadn't done, the opportunities they had missed, the love they had never expressed. The days I spent there taught me that whether you are young or old, life is always a series of challenges and lessons. One day, whether you want it or not, you will grow old. And when that moment comes, how will you look back on your life? Will you smile at the beautiful memories, or will you regret the things left undone? Now, I want to share with you 7 important lessons that I believe anyone at any age needs to hear. Because if there is one thing I have realized more deeply than ever, it is this. Don't wait until it's too late to learn how to cherish this life. 1. Loneliness. The invisible disease that devastates old age. When thinking about old age, many people worry about health issues, about aches and pains, or the gradual weakening of the body. But the most frightening thing about aging is not illness. It is loneliness. I used to think that a nursing home was simply a place that provided medical care, a place where the elderly could live comfortably when they could no longer take care of themselves. But only when I truly set foot in one did I realize that the hardest thing was not the physical pain, but the pain of being forgotten. Every day I saw elderly men and women sitting silently by the window, their eyes gazing into the distant sky, waiting for someone to walk through their door. But week after week, month after month, many never saw a single visitor. The children who once meant everything to them had been swept away by the fast-pacing rhythm of their own lives. The friends who had shared countless memories with them had now been laid to rest somewhere far away, and the world outside kept turning, as if they had never existed. I once thought I was strong, that I could face everything on my own. But being here, I realized that no one can truly live without love and connection. No matter how dedicated the nursing home staff may be, they can never replace the warmth of a child's embrace, the intimate conversations with close friends, or the comforting feeling of knowing that someone genuinely cares about you. Loneliness doesn't kill you instantly, but it eats away at you day by day, hour by hour, gradually turning you into a shadow of yourself. If I could turn back time, I wouldn't have spent so many years chasing after work, money, or status. I would have cherished the small moments with my family, called my loved ones more often, and taken the time to build meaningful relationships instead of always saying, "I'm too busy." Because in the end, what remains is not the balance in your bank account, not the titles or achievements you have earned, but the people who loved you and the moments you shared with them. That is the most important lesson I have learned, and if you are listening to these words, I hope you won't have to regret it, as I once did. 2. Health. the most precious asset that nothing can replace. All my life I believed that success could bring happiness. I saw countless people spend their youth chasing money, status, and fame. They threw themselves into work, invested time in major business deals, and indulged in luxurious lifestyles filled with grand houses, expensive cars, and extravagant vacations around the world. But when I stepped into a nursing home, I realized a harsh truth. None of it matters when health is gone. I met a man who was once a highly successful businessman. He possessed an immense fortune and was admired by many. But when illness struck, everything changed. Now he could no longer eat on his own, walk on his own, or even do the simplest tasks like dressing himself or holding a glass of water without assistance. He could afford to pay for care, but he could not buy back the freedom his body once had. He could purchase anything, except his own health. I saw the despair in his eyes. Not because he had lost his wealth, but because he realized that for all those years he had neglected the most important thing. He had spent decades earning money, but never spent a single moment truly listening to his body. He had believed that success meant accumulating riches, but now he only wished he could walk on his own 2 feet or lift a cup of tea without waiting for someone to feed him. If I could turn back time, I would treat my body with more care. I would not take my health for granted, but would cherish it as a treasure. I would exercise regularly, eat healthily, and learn how to manage stress instead of constantly chasing fleeting ambitions. Because in the end, no matter how much money you have, no matter how many houses, cars, or prestigious titles you own, it will all be meaningless if you do not have the health to enjoy life. Do not wait until it is too late to realize that the most valuable asset you have is not the numbers in your bank account, but the body you live in every day. Treasure it before you no longer have the chance to do so. 3. When everything passes, material wealth means nothing. I once had a large house filled with possessions I had spent my whole life collecting. Expensive sofas, exquisite artworks, wardrobes overflowing with clothes I had never even worn. I took pride in my home and in the things I had spent years acquiring. I thought they would bring me satisfaction and happiness. But now I live in a small room with just a single bed, a tiny closet, and a few essentials. The irony is, I do not miss the things I once owned. I do not remember how many clothes I had, how many decorations I collected, or how much luxurious furniture I bought. All those things I once treasured have now faded into distant memories. What I do remember, however, are not the material possessions I spent my life accumulating, but the moments I lived and the people who shared those moments with me. I once knew a wealthy woman who had spent her life amassing riches. She owned a grand mansion, dazzling diamonds, and a lavish collection of designer handbags. But when old age came, she could no longer enjoy them. She lived alone in a nursing home, without family or close friends. When I asked her if she ever thought about her valuable possessions, she simply gave a sad smile and said, "Those things don't hug me when I'm sad, don't talk to me when I'm lonely, and don't make me feel loved." That was when I realized a truth that many only understand too late. We spend our youth chasing material wealth, but at the end of our lives, those things no longer matter. A grand house is just an empty space without the laughter of family. Luxurious possessions are useless if there is no one to share your happiness with, and when we are gone, the things we owned will simply be sold or discarded, while the memories we created will be the only things that truly remain in the hearts of those we loved. If I could go back, I wouldn't spend so much time making money just to buy another car, a bigger house, or the latest fashion. Instead, I would spend more time traveling with my family, talking with my friends, and creating meaningful moments. Because in the end, when all material things fade away, the only thing that truly remains is the memories we created and the people we shared our lives with. Do not wait until it is too late to realize that happiness is not in the things you own, but in the moments you cherish and the people you love. 4. Independence. A priceless gift we only appreciate when it's gone. Have you ever paused to think about the simplest things you do every day? Waking up in the morning on your own, choosing your own clothes, making yourself a cup of coffee, or stepping outside to breathe in the fresh air. These things may seem obvious, but they are privileges, a gift that not everyone has forever. I never thought much about them either, until I entered the nursing home and saw people who were once strong and independent, now completely reliant on others for even the most basic tasks. I met a man who had been a successful businessman, someone who had never taken orders from anyone his entire life. He had the freedom to make decisions, to choose where he went, how he lived, and what he did. But then, one day, a stroke struck. In the blink of an eye, all his control disappeared. Now he needed a nurse to help him dress, someone to cut his food into small pieces so he could eat. And even moving from his bed to a wheelchair became a struggle. He told me that the hardest part was not the physical pain, but the realization that he was no longer in control of his own life. Looking at him, I thought back to my younger years, when I could move freely, take care of myself, and make my own choices. I used to believe that I would always be strong, that I would always be able to take care of myself. But no one can outrun time. As old age arrives, the body weakens, and what was once effortless becomes a difficult challenge. It was only then that I truly understood independence is one of life's most precious gifts. When you are young, you never think about needing help to go to the bathroom or get dressed. You never imagine a day when you won't be able to lift a glass of water to your lips or get out of bed on your own. But I want you to pause for a moment and truly think about this. You are experiencing something that many elderly people can only dream of: a healthy body and an independent life. Do not take it for granted. Cherish it now. If I could turn back time, I would take better care of my health, strengthen my body, and keep my mind sharp. I wouldn't waste my health on bad habits, unnecessary stress, or trivial concerns. Because I have realized one thing: once you lose your independence, no amount of money, status, or possessions can bring it back. If you are reading this, I hope you won't wait until it's too late to understand the value of self-sufficiency. Take care of yourself now. Love your body, because one day, when you can no longer do even the smallest things for yourself, you will realize that independence was the greatest gift life ever gave you. 5. True happiness comes from the simple things. Have you ever asked yourself what true happiness really is? We spend most of our lives chasing big goals, wanting a bigger house, a better job, a bank account filled with wealth. We believe that only when we achieve these things will happiness finally arrive. But when I lived in the nursing home, I learned a different lesson. Happiness is not a luxury that we must race to obtain. It has always been right in front of us, in the simplest things. We just need to recognize it. I met an 85-year-old woman who always had a radiant smile. Though her body was frail and she needed a cane to walk, her eyes always shone with joy. One day, out of curiosity, I asked her, "What is your secret to staying so optimistic?" She smiled and gently replied, "I don't think about what I've lost. I cherish what I still have." Her words struck me deeply. How many times in my life had I tormented myself over things I had lost or things I had yet to achieve? How many moments had I let happiness slip away because I was too busy worrying about the future or regretting the past? But this elderly woman taught me that happiness is not something we will attain someday. It is something we can feel right now. I started to notice the little things around me. I realized that happiness could be found in a warm cup of tea in the morning, in the sound of birds singing outside my window, in the sunlight streaming through the curtains, or in a heartfelt conversation with an old friend. I saw the residents of the nursing home, people who had nothing left but time, find joy in the simplest things. An elderly man was overjoyed when he received a letter from his grandson. A woman smiled as she listened to a song she loved from her youth. I also met people who had spent their entire lives rushing, always waiting for something bigger to bring them happiness. They had believed that happiness lay in a larger home, a bigger savings account, or greater fame. But at the end of their lives, they realized that none of those things truly brought them joy. The most valuable things in life are not what we own, but the moments we cherish. If I could turn back time, I would stop chasing after things that I once thought would bring me happiness. I would spend more time talking with loved ones, watching the sunset, and appreciating the little moments life has to offer. If you are reading this, I hope you won't wait until it's too late to realize this truth. Happiness is not in the things we wait to achieve one day. Happiness is here, in the small moments we can appreciate right now. 6. Forgiveness, the greatest gift you can give yourself. I used to think that forgiveness was something we did for others. When someone hurt us, we believed they should face consequences, that holding on to pain was a way to show them we couldn't simply forget. But in the nursing home, I learned a different lesson. Forgiveness is not about freeing others, it is about freeing yourself. The days I spent there gave me the chance to witness people carrying the weight of resentment and wounds that had never healed. They were angry at their children for not caring for them as they had hoped. They held grudges against friends for mistakes from long ago. Some even harbored resentment toward those who had already passed away, as if holding on to the pain would somehow make things fairer. But what I realized was that the ones who held on to grudges were also the ones who suffered the most. I remember an elderly woman who sat by the window every day, her eyes filled with sorrow. When I asked her what she was thinking about, she simply said, "I wish I had forgiven my sister before she passed away." They had fought over something trivial, and for years neither was willing to make the first move toward reconciliation. When her sister died, she realized that the opportunity to make peace had vanished forever. Now, all that remained was regret and guilt. Her words echoed in my mind, making me understand that holding on to pain only hurts ourselves, while the other person may never know or may no longer even care. I too carried wounds in my heart, memories of people who had hurt me in one way or another. I once believed that holding on to anger would protect me from being hurt again, but in reality it only made me more exhausted and bitter. I saw a stark difference between those who had learned to forgive and those who couldn't let go. The ones who held on to grudges lived in bitterness, always carrying an invisible weight on their shoulders. Meanwhile, those who had learned to forgive carried an admirable sense of peace. They were lighter, they smiled more, and they lived more fully. If I could turn back time, I would learn to forgive sooner. Not because those who hurt me deserved it, but because I deserved peace. I chose to let go, not to make them feel better, but to free myself from the burden of pain. If you are reading this, I hope you take a moment to think about the people you have yet to forgive. Perhaps it is a family member, an old friend, or even yourself. Don't wait until it's too late to realize that forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let pain control your life anymore. And when you do that, you will experience a freedom that no amount of money can buy. The freedom of a truly peaceful soul. 7. Every day is a gift. Cherish it while you can. One morning, like any other, I woke up, walked down the long hallway of the nursing home, and saw the familiar faces around me. But something was different. A bed was empty, a room was quieter than usual. The chair by the window where someone always sat with a distant gaze was now vacant. I realized that someone had not woken up that morning. He was one of the residents in the nursing home, an elderly man whom I had just seen the night before. He had been sitting at the dining table, sharing stories with those around him. He had laughed, told old tales he loved, and made everyone smile with him. Yet just one night later he was gone. Without warning, without any sign that yesterday would be the last time he would ever see the sunlight. This shook me to my core and made me realize just how fragile life truly is. No matter how healthy you are, no matter how careful you try to be, none of us can predict what tomorrow will bring. We often live as if we have all the time in the world. We assume there will always be another chance to say I love you, another moment to call an old friend, another opportunity to do the things we have been putting off. But the truth is, life does not come with guarantees. Every single day we wake up is a gift that so many people did not receive today. If I could go back in time, I would stop waiting for a perfect moment to do the things that truly matter. I would express my feelings more, spend more time with the people I love, and appreciate the small joys of life, instead of taking them for granted. If you are reading this, I hope you won't wait for a tragedy to remind you of how precious life is. Do not put off happiness for one day. Hug your loved ones today. Laugh as much as you can today. Say the words that need to be said today, because today is a gift. And one day, it will be the only thing that matters. I have heard too many people say, one day I will travel to the place I've always dreamed of. One day I will spend more time with my family. One day I will finally pursue my dreams. But I have realized that one day never comes. We keep waiting, postponing, believing that we still have plenty of time. We convince ourselves that there will be a perfect moment to start living the way we want. But the perfect moment does not exist. At the nursing home, I met people who once had many plans for the future. One elderly man had always dreamed of writing a book about his life, but he kept delaying it, thinking, there's still time. By the time he could no longer think clearly enough to write, his biggest regret was not starting sooner. There was also a woman who had always wanted to learn how to dance when she was young, but she kept telling herself she could do it later. Now she sits in a wheelchair and tells me, I wish I had danced while I still could. Instead of living fully each day, we spend too much time worrying about things that have not happened, regretting the past or dwelling on trivial troubles. We care too much about what others say, about meaningless arguments, or about small failures that in a few years no one will even remember. An elderly woman once told me, all my life I spent too much time worrying about unimportant things. I feared what others thought of me. I held on to anger because of words that hurt me. And now, when I look back, I realize none of it truly mattered. Are you doing the same? Are you wasting precious days over things that won't matter in a few years? If you knew you only had 1 month to live, would you still let these things consume you? Even though I only stayed at the nursing home for 2 months, I learned that life is not measured by how many years we live, but by how we live each moment. Here I saw people who had no regrets because they had lived fully, loved deeply, and done the things they truly wanted. But I also saw people filled with remorse. They wished they had spent more time with their families instead of focusing only on work. They wished they had loved more, forgiven sooner, and lived a life with fewer regrets. I realized that aging is not what we should fear. The real fear is not about how many years we have left, but about how we have lived those years. I am no longer afraid of growing old, but I am afraid of wasting time. So, I want to remind you, no matter what age you are, do not wait until it is too late to recognize the value of health, relationships, and the meaning of life. When all you have left are memories, you will wish you had created more of them. You will wish you had spent more time with the people you love. You will wish you had cherished every moment. If you love someone, tell them today. If you have a dream, start now, even if it's just a small step. If you are holding on to resentment, forgive and let go so your heart can be free. If you can make someone happy, do not hesitate. Cherish each day as if it were your last. Because when your time comes, you will not regret the things you did. You will only regret the things you never did. Life is shorter than you think. Live meaningfully. Love without hesitation. Be grateful for every day, because every single day, no matter how ordinary, is a gift.